Hello everyone, Isaac here back in another video, and today, I'm on the Creepypasta website. Oh my god. Alright, so today we're gonna be reviewing, or not really reviewing, but today we're gonna be reading, Creepypasta. And what is this one? Abandoned by Disney. Oh wait, Abandoned by Disney? Isn't that one with the inverted Mickey who rips his head off? Alright, I guess we're gonna be reading it today. Oh boy! So I don't really have a real introduction. I just wanted to read the creepypasta. This is mainly going to be sort of like a podcast. So like do something else while you're watching it. So without further ado, let's begin. Some of you may have heard that the Disney Corporation is responsible for at least one real live ghost town. Disney built the Treasure Island resort in Bankers Bay in the Bahamas. It didn't start as a ghost town. Disney's cruise ships would actually stop at the resort and leave tourists there to relax in luxury. This is a fact. Look it up. Disney blew $30 million on the place. Yes, $30 million. I accidentally said $3 million. I'm an idiot. Then they abandoned it. Disney blamed the shallow waters, too shallow for their ships to safely operate, and there was even blame cast on the workers, saying that since they were from the Bahamas, they were too lazy to work on regular schedules. Yeah, screw those workers. That's where the factual nature of their story ends. It wasn't because of sand, and it obviously wasn't because of foreigners are lazy. Both are convenient excuse. Alright. No, I sincerely doubt those reasons were legitimate. Why don't I buy the official story? Oh, wait. No. Why don't I buy the official story? Because of Mowgli's Palace. Isn't that one character from the Jungle Book? Near the beachside city of Emerald Island in North California, Disney began construction of Mowgli's Palace in the late 1990s. The concept was a jungle-themed resort with a large, you guessed it, palace in the center of the whole thing. If you're unfamiliar with the character of Mowgli, then you might better remember the story, The Jungle Book. Oh yeah. If you haven't seen it anywhere else, you know it as the Disney cartoon from decades past. Okay, you know it as the Disney cartoon from decades past. I don't know why it was so complicated for me to read, but anyways, Mowgli is an abandoned child. Oh yeah, Mowgli. I was wondering if it was a character from the Jungle Book. I thought it was the monkey guy. I never watched the Jungle Book. In the jungle, is essentially raised by animals and oh my god, I suck. Simulation threatened / pursued by other animals. Mowgli's Palace was a controversial undertaking from the start. Disney brought up a ton of high-priced land for the project, and there was actually a scandal surrounding some of the purchases. The local government claimed an eminent domain on people's homes, then turned around and sold the property to Disney. Frickin' Michael Rat. At one point, a home that had just been constructed was immediately condemned with little to no explanation. Good lord. I suck. The land grabbed by the government was supposed to for some fictional highway project, knowing well what was going on. People started calling it Mickey Mouse Highway. I'll call it a freeway. Freeway? What the heck's a freeway? If anybody gets that reference, then I like you. Then there was the concept art. A group of stuffed shirts from Disney Co. actually held a city meeting. They intended to sell everyone on how luxurious this project was going to be for everyone. When they showed the concept art, this gigantic Indian palace surrounded by jungle, staffed with men and women in long clothes and tribal gear. Well, suffice to say, everyone their. Oh, I didn't know there was swearing in this. All right. I want to keep it the family-friendly, PG clean, alright? To say, everyone flipped their crap We're talking about a large Indian palace, jungle, and long clothes. Okay. I cannot say words. Only in the center of the relatively wealth area, but also somewhat xenophobic area of the southern USA. It was questionable mix at the point in history. One of the members of the crowd tried to storm the stage, but he was quickly subdued by security after he managed to break one of the presentation boards over his knee. Disney took that community and established. I can say this word. Okay, I don't know why. I can say it. Estilated, broke it over its knee. As well, the houses were raved, the land was cleared, and there wasn't a darn thing anyone could do or say about it. Local TV and newspapers were against the resort at the beginning, but some insane connection between Disney's media holding and the local Venus came into play, and their options turned on a dime. Not opinions turned on a dime, not options, opinions. So anyways, Treasure Island, the Bahamas. Disney sunk those millions in, and then they split. Same thing happened with Mowgli's Palace. Oh god, Mowgli's Palace. I don't know why they decided to name it after the weird kid from the Jungle Book. Construction was complete. Visitors actually stayed at the resort. The surrounding communities were flooded with traffic and the usual annoyance associated with an influx of lost and irate tourists. Then all just stopped. Disney shut it down and nobody knew what the heck to think. But they were pretty happy about it. Disney's loss was pretty hilarious and wonderful to a large group of folks who didn't want this in the first place. I honestly didn't give the place another thought since the hearing it closed over a decade ago. I lived maybe 4 hours from Emerald Island, so really I only heard the rumbles and didn't expect any of it firsthand. Then I read this article for someone who had explored the Treasure Island Resort and posted a whole bag about all this crazy crap he found there. Stuff just left behind. Things smashed, defaced, property ruined by disgruntled former employees who had lost their job, inverted Mickey suit walking around. Heck, the locals from all around property had a hand in wrecking that place. People there felt just as angry about Treasure Island as folks here did about Mowgli's Palace. Plus, there were some rumors that Disney had released their aquariums stock into the local waters when they close, including sharks. Who wouldn't want to take a few swings at some merchandise after that? I wouldn't want to. I'm just going to steal it, am I right? Steal some Disney merch? Heck yeah. Well, what am I getting at? Added this blog about Treasure Island got me thinking. Even though many years have passed since its closing, I figured it might be cool to do some urban exploration. Yes! Mowgli's Palace. Take some pictures, write about my experience, and probably see if there was anything I could take home as a memo, whatever, souvenir. I'm not going to say I wasted no time in getting there. Sorry. Because honestly, it took me another year after I first found the Treasure Island article to get around to going up to Emerald Island. Over the course of that year, I did a lot of research on the palace resort. Or rather, I tried to. Naturally, no official Disney site or resource made any mention of the place that had been scrubbed clean. Even odder, however, was that nobody before myself had apparently thought to blog about this place or even post a picture. None of the local TV or newspaper sites had one word about the place. Though that was to expect since they had all swing Disney's way. They wouldn't be out there lauding their embarrassment, you know. Recently, I learned the corporation could actually ask Google, for example, to remove links from search results, basically for no good reason. Looking back, it's probably not that nobody spoke of the resort, but rather their words were made inaccessible, I guess. So in the end, I could barely find the place. All I had to go on was an old-ass crap map I recently received in the mall back in the 90s. It was a promotional item sent out to people who had recently been to Disney World, and I guess since I had been there in the late 80s, that was recent. I didn't really intend to hang on to it. It just shoved in with my books and comics from my childhood. I only remember it months into my research, and even it took me another weeks to locate the storage bin my parents had to shove it all into. But I did find it. Locals were no help, as most were transplant who had moved to the beach in recent years, or old residents who just sneered at me and made rude gestures the second I managed to say, "Where would I find Mowgli's... Did... Where would I find Mowgli?" Giving him a bird. You like the bird? The drive took me through unorgally, 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 inordinately long corridor of overgrown tropical plants. Okay, I guess we're here now. And I guess we're at Mowgli's palace. Ran rampant and overpopulated area mixed with the native species of Florida that actually belonged there and had tried to reclaim the land. I was in awe when I reached the front gates of the resort. Tremendously monolithic wooden gates whose supports to either side looked like they must have been cut from giant squares. The gate itself had been gonged in several places by woodpeckers and eaten away at the base by burrowing insects. Hanging on the gate was a sheet of metal, some random scrap, with hand-painted letters scrawled in black. Abandoned by Disney. Clearly the handwork of some past local or employee wanted to make some small protest. The gates were open enough to walk through, but not drive, so grabbing my digital camera and the map, whose flip side showed the layout of the resort, I set off on foot. Is that a baby crying? Alright, never mind. The inner grounds of the place were just as overgrown as the entranceway. Palm trees stood unattended in the ragged among piles of their own coconuts. Banana plants, similar, stood in their own stinky, bug-riddling refuse. There was a sort of clash between odor and chaos, as carefully planted rows of perennial flowers mixed with obnoxious tall weeds and stinky, blocking mushrooms. Don't eat them, you might grow big. All that remained of the outdoor structure were broken, rotten wood and various charred bits of undefinable material. What was most likely an informational booth or outdoor bar was now simply a pile of stored debris chopped up the past vandalism and ravaged by weather. The most interesting thing on the ground was a statue of Baloo, Bear Necessities, the friendly bear from the Jungle Book, which stood in a sort of courtyard in front of the main building. He was frozen in a jovial wave toward no one, staring into the empty space with a silly, toothy grin as bird crap covered whole swaths of his fur and vines ensured his platform. Oh god, that's gross. What are birds crap on Baloo? That's not nice. I approached the main building, the palace. Only to find the outside of the building covered in graffiti, where the original paint had it peeled and chipped away. The front doors weren't just open, they had been taken off their hinds and were stolen. Above the front doors, or the gaping maw where they had been, someone had once again painted, "Abandoned by Disney." I wish I could tell you about all the awesome stuff I saw inside the palace. Forgotten statues, abandoned cash registers, a full-fledged secret society of homeless bums. But no. The inside of the building was so stark, so bare, that I actually think people had stolen the molding off the walls. What? Anything that was too big to steal. Counters, desks, giant fake trees, they were all resting aim. This empty echo chamber that implied my every step like a slow rat-a-tat-tat of a machine gun. Okay. I checked the floor plan and headed to all the locations that might seem in any way interesting. The kitchen was, as you imagine, an industrial food prep area with all the appliances in space. No expense spared. Every glass surface was broken. Every door knocked off its hinges. Every metal surface kicked and dented. The entire place smelled like very old pee-pee. The huge freezer, not even remotely cool now, had row upon rows of empty shelf space, hooked hanging from the ceilings, probably for hanging cuts on meat. And as I stood inside for a moment, I noticed they were swinging. Each hook swing in a random direction, but their movements were so slow and small that it was almost impossible to see. Is that a baby crying right in front of my doorway? Come on, seriously? Alright, where was I? Each hook swing in a random direction, but their movements were so slow and small that it was almost impossible to see. I figured it had been caused by my footsteps, so I stopped one from swinging by clenching into my fist, then carefully letting it go. But 1 second, it started swinging once more. The bathrooms were in much the same state as the rest of the building, just like Treasure Island Resort. Someone had monotonously smashed each porcelain linen command with coconuts and other implements. Implements? There was about a half an inch of rancid, stinking, stagnant water. So rotten water on the floor. So I didn't stay there very long because I didn't want to die due to the fart fumes. What's odd is that the toilets and the sinks and the bendits in the ladies' room. Yes, I went in there. I'm a pervert. Well, not really, because I'm assuming nobody was in there. If somebody was in there, he'd probably tell us. All dripped, leaked, or just run freely. It seemed to me that they should have shut the water off a long time ago. There were plenty of rooms in the resort, but naturally, I didn't have time to look through them all. The few I did peer into were similarly wrecked, and I didn't expect to find anything there. I thought there was actually television or radio in one room, as I really think I heard a quiet conversation coming out of it. Ooh, I am actually getting a bit chilled. Though it was like a whisper, probably my own breathing echoing in the silence, or just another case of the sound of falling water playing tricks on my mind. This is what it sounded like. I don't believe it. I didn't know that. Your father told me. I know, that sounded ridiculous. I'm just telling you what I experienced. Why I thought that might been something running in that room, or worse, some vagrants who had holed up there and probably would knife me at the front doors of the palace. I figured I hadn't found anything of note, and I had wasted to trip up. I swear to goodness, have you heard that baby scream? I don't know what to do with my life. Alright, okay. As I looked out the door, I noticed something. Sorry. Wait, where was I? Oh, frick. Okay, I found it. As I looked out the door, I noticed something interesting in the courtyard that I apparently missed. Something that would give me at least one thing to show for all my trouble, even though it's just a photograph. There is a lifeless statue of a panten, maybe 8 feet long, curled up and sunning itself on a pedestal. Right in the center of the area, it was almost time for the sun to start setting, so the light fell onto the object in a perfect way for a photograph. I approached the pavilion and snapped a photo. Then I stood on my toes and snapped another. I moved closely again to get the detail of its face. Slowly, casually, the pension lifted its head, looked directly into my eyes, turned and sluttered off the pedestal, across the grass into the trees. Oh, that was a snake. It was a snake! Okay. All 80 feet of it. Its head disappeared into the woods before its tail even left the sunning spot. Disney had released all their exotic animals onto the ground right after. On my floor plan map was the reptile house. I should have known. It read about the sharks at the Treasure Island, and I should have known they'd done this. I was dumbfounded, just utterly stubble-flid. My mouth must have been hanging open for the longest time before I came back down to earth and snapped it shut. I blinked a few times and I backed away from where the snake had been, back towards the palace. Even though I was totally gone, I still wasn't taking any chances and backed my way into the building. It took a few deep breaths and slapped on my own face to get myself in the right head again. After that, I looked for a place to sit down as my legs were feeling like a big jelly at this point. Of course, there was no place to sit unless I wanted to likely on the broken glass and dead leaves, carpet, or haul myself onto a desk of questionable reliability. I seen some stairs near the palace lobby, and I decided to have a seat there until I felt better. Ooh. The staircase was far enough away from the front of the building to be relatively clean, save for a startling accumulating of dust. I pulled a wedge of metal off the wall once again, painted with the "Abandoned by Disney" motto. I just realized I had the fan on. Oopsies. Let me just say the line again. I'm gonna do it a bit quick, okay? The staircase was far enough away from the front of the building to be relatively clean, save for a startlingly accumulating of dust. I pulled a wedge of metal off the wall, once again painted with the "Abandoned by Disney" motto I became accustomed to. I placed a wedge on the stairs and sat on it to keep at least somewhat clean. The stairway led downward, below ground level. Using my camera flash as a sort of improvising flashlight, I could see that the staircase ended in a metal mesh door with a padlock. A sign on the door, a real sign, read, "Mascots only. Thank you." This broke up my spirits a little bit, for two reasons. One, a mascot-only area would have definitely had some interesting stuff back in the day. Two, the padlock was still in place. Nobody had gone down there. Not the vandals, not the looters, nobody. This was the one place I could actually explore and perhaps find something interesting to photograph or wantonly steal. I had come to the palace, agreeing with myself that it was okay to take anything I wanted because, hey, it was abandoned. I could take anything I want. I mean, to be honest, I would have done it too, but then again, I'm not going to an abandoned building late at night. Screw that. Or maybe this is daytime. I don't know. I bet it's nighttime just because, I don't know, night's freaking terrifying. And I'm not referring to the Sega Saturn game, you know, the actual time. It didn't take much to bust the lock. Well, actually, that's wrong. It didn't take much to bust a metal plate on the wall that the padlock was hooked to. Time and decay had done most of the work for me, and I was able to bend that metal plate enough to pull the screws off the wall. Yes! Something nobody else had apparently thought of, or haven't been able to do with at that time. The mascot's only area was startlingly and very welcome change from the rest of the building I'd seen. For one, every second or third fluorescent light overhead was illuminating. Oh, because those lights were illuminating, even though the flicker faded randomly. Also, nothing had been stolen or broken, even if agent exposure. So we're definitely taking their toll. Tables had notepads and pens. There was clocks, even a punching clock on the walls, complete with a fill-out time cards. Chairs were scattered around, and there was even a small break room with an old static-filled television and long rotten-out food and drinks on the counters. It was like one of those post-apocalyptic movies where everything is left in the state of investigation. I don't know, maybe. As I walked the maze-like sub-basement hallways of the mascot's only area, the sights just became more and more interesting as I went further. Desks and tables were knocked over, paper scattered and almost melded with the damp floor. A large carpet of mold was slowly overtaking the real rotted crimson floor covering. Everything was just sort of squishy. I hate that word. I hate the word squishy or squish. It's gross. It makes me feel uncomfortable, just like saying sus, moist, or squash. Ugh. Anyways, what disintegrated into mush when I applied even the least amount of force into clothing items hanging on hooks of one of the rooms, simply filled the moist threads of. I tried to unhook them. One thing that annoyed me was the light was becoming more sparse and unreliable as I went further into the dank grave, suffocating depths of the place. I need a drink. Eventually, I reached a black and yellow striped door with the words "Character Prep 1 Stanley" written on it. Alright, screw it. The door wouldn't open at first. I figured this was probably where the costumes were kept, and I definitely wanted a photograph of that twisted, stinky mess. Tried as I might, whether angle or trick I tried, the door wouldn't budge. That's it. Until I gave up and started to walk away. That's when there was a slight popping sound and the door creaked slowly. Thanks, mate. Inside, the room was completely dark, pitch black. I used the camera flash to look for a light switch in the wall by the door. But by? That's the wrong kind of by. They spelled it B-U-Y. It should be B-Y. Or maybe it's supposed to be like that. I don't know. But there was nothing. As I made my search, I was jarred out of my senses and excitement by a loud electric buzz. Rows of lights overhead suddenly flashed to life, flickering and fading in and out like the rest I had passed. It took a second for my eyes to adjust, and it seemed like the light was going to just keep getting brighter until all the bulbs exploded. But just when I thought it would reach that critical stage, the lights dimmed a bit and steadied. The room was actually as I had pictured it. Various Disney costumes hanging on the walls, fully put together like the strange cartoon caverners hanging from invisible nooses. What? Okay. There was an entire rack of long clothes and native clothes on hangers towards the back. What I found odd, and what I wanted to photograph right away, was a Mickey Mouse costume. Ooh, at the center of the room. Unlike the other costumes, it was lying on its back in the center of the floor, like a murder victim. The fur on the costume was rotten shading, creating bare patches. What was even odder, however, was the color of the costume. It was like a photo negative of the actual Mickey Mouse. Black where he should be white, and white where he should be black. His normal red overalls were light blue. It's not overalls, it's shorts. The sight was off-putting enough that I actually put off photographing this thing until last. You probably should have took a photograph and book it. I took a picture of the costume hanging on the walls, upward angles, downward angles, side shots that show an entire row of frozen, pudrued cartoon faces. Some with plastic eyes missing. Ooh. Then I decided to stage a shot. Just one of the bedraggled characters' heads on the so grimy floor. I reached for the headpiece of a Donald Duck costume and carefully removed it so the thing wouldn't fall apart in my hands. As I looked into its face, the wide-eyed, moldering head and a long, clattered sound made me jump with affright. I looked down at my feet, and there between my shoes was a human skull. It had fallen out of the... It's like a shocking moment, and I'm assuming you can hear my mom in the background going, "Oh, no, Lydia, no." Like, come on. I don't know if you can hear it or not. You probably can't. Let me try that again. I looked down at my feet, and there between my shoes was a human skull. It had fallen out of the mascot head and shattered into pieces at my feet. Only the empty face and lower jaw remained staring at me. I dropped the duck head immediately, as you expected, and moved for the door. So I stood in the doorway. I looked back to the skull on the floor. I had to take a picture of it. You know, I had to. For any number of reasons that may seem silly, but only if you don't think it through. I need proof of what happened, especially if Disney was going to somehow make this go away. I had no doubt in my mind, right from the start, that even if I was just gross neglectfulness, if Disney was responsible for this, that's when Mickey, the photo negative opposite Mickey in the middle of the floor, started to get up. First sitting up, then climbing to its feet. The Mickey costume, or whoever was inside of it, stood there at the center of the room, its fake face just staring directly at me. As I mumbled, "No," over and over and over, "No, no, no," with shaking hands, a violently thrashing heart and legs that I once again turned to jelly. I managed to lift the camera and aim it at the opposite creature, now quickly sizing me up. The digital camera streamed to play only dead pixels in the shape of the thing. It was perfect. It was a perfect silhouette of the Mickey costume. As the camera moved in my unsteady hands, the dead pixels spread, mirroring the screen whenever the Mickey outlines moved to. Then the camera died, went blank and quiet and broken. I raised my eyes up once again to the Mickey costume.
Hey! It said in a hushed, perverted, but perfectly executed Mickey Mouse voice.
You wanna see my head come off?
It started to pull as its own head, working its clumsy glove-clad fingers around its neck, with clawing, impatient movements, similar to a wounded man trying to pull himself free of a predator's jaw, as it worked its digits into its neck. So much blood, so much thick, chunky, yellow blood. I turned away as I heard a sickening tearing of cloth and flesh. Only cared about getting away. Above the doorway out of this room, I saw the final message clawed into the metal with bone or fingernails. Abandoned by God. I never got the pictures out of that camera. I never wrote that blog entry about it. After I ran from that place, felt for my sanity, if not my very life. I knew why Disney didn't want anyone to know about this place. They didn't want anyone like me getting in there. They didn't want anything like that getting out. Original author by Slime Beast. Alright. So, what did I think about that story? I thought it was actually pretty good. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of horror as, like, general, really. This is the guy who likes Finance at Freddy's, but, you know. But hey, this is actually pretty alright. I did like this story. Maybe I'll read future creepypastas in the future. I do have an idea for, reading the SuicideMouse.avi creepypasta. I do have that idea now. And so I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, subscribe. Yep. Bada bing, bada boom. See you later, punks.
Uh-huh. Oh, boy.